Hey, so I had a situation today and I just needed to make a video about it or blog about it or something. Um, Basically, I guess what I want to talk about is intellectual transphobia or intellectualized transphobia. And I guess to preface this, I have, identified as trans for a little while, and before that, identified as gay. So I am not someone who is not used to bigotry or ignorance in that realm. Um, However, it usually doesn't hurt me because I just have sort of been dealing with people who are ignorant, and I'm like, okay, well, you don't know any better, or you're wrong, and I know you're wrong. Like religious arguments don't phase me, anything like that. But recently, I've encountered this new transphobia. It's not new to other people, just probably it's new to me, which is this very logical, thought through, intellectual, rationalized kind of transphobia. And it's not that I find it compelling, but it hurts. And the reason that it hurts is that I can't just say, well, you don't know any better or you're ignorant. I mean, it is ignorance in a way, but it's also hard for me to counter. Not only do I have to think, but I have this strong emotional response, and it's very hurtful. And I experienced that today. Today, I was interviewing, well, not really interviewing, having lunch with a job interview candidate for my university. And I am a student, so it wasn't like an official interview. It was just lunch with the students, and I do not have a huge say in this individual's hiring process or anything like that. I was just supposed to be giving him an idea of what the university is like, and it was supposed to be small talk and things like that. And there were a few other students there, and this guy was very likable, very intelligent. He had done a lot of research on a lot of things I'm interested in, and we were having good conversation. And toward the end of our conversation, when he was discussing his research on transgender people, um, he basically went on this rant about how transsexuality is not real, that it is just cosmetic surgery and all of these things, and I just didn't know how to respond. I my pulse quickened. I was all ready to attack, but it wasn't the place. I mean, it really wasn't the place. Not only was I not out as being transgender, but it was a kind of a formal luncheon kind of thing, and he was in a more position of power in a way, in the sense that he was the professor, we were the students, and I just could not say anything. And I had a couple of friends who were there with me, and afterwards they had said they didn't feel like they could say anything either, but that it was very inappropriate and very offensive, very transphobic. A little about this individual, other than the fact that they have done a lot of research on transsexuality and gender, they were applying to teach gender courses in part, not completely, but in part. Um, and then also, this individual identifies as gay. So, um, coming from there, I was just like, I don't know how to respond to that. I mean, obviously, I shared this with my professors, and they were also shocked and didn't realize this about him. But that argument, which his argument was very reasoned through, that it wasn't just you can't change your body. He was talking about basically that trans people are the victims of a society that doesn't allow androgyny or something like that. Like it was an argument about transsexuality being a response to a social problem and the medicalization of society or something. And one reason it was hurtful to me was that when you have an argument that is that complicated and uses that kind of terminology, it's kind of blanketed in the terms that we've come to accept. And this is similar to arguments that used to be made in regard to in racism and homophobia, where people use science and they were like, look, these people are different. These people are not as intelligent. These people have a mental illness, and it was a way of cloaking it in the language that people were used to accepting. Because if someone tells you that, for instance, electrons are real, um, how many of us have actually seen electrons but we believe that they're real. We read about it in textbooks, and we're kind of used to saying, like, science is logical and well reasoned, and we accept it. And it kind of applies to social science too, not as much as the hard sciences. But when we have a study or a researcher saying something, we're more likely to accept it. And so it was hard. Finding someone who I thought was very intelligent, who had done a lot of research on things, was certainly not completely ignorant about everything, and who I felt was coming from my own community. I still identify as queer, LGBT, and when we first met, I felt we had a connection because we were both queer, and I was really getting along with him. And so the whole that whole rant was just so shocking and disappointing and against my expectations, and very upsetting. And I was deeply upset. Now, I have people who say transphobic things to me all the time, but it's not upsetting. But this was really upsetting, and it reminded me a lot of the argument against transsexuality that I see on certain websites that a lot of people are aware of. Don't want to mention by name to give publicity, but that kind of um, mm, I would say not academic argument against the academic transphobia as much as like this LGB or feminist slash, I don't know, liberal argument. So people who otherwise I would be like expecting to not be transphobic who are. So it was very difficult for me to deal with, and I think that um, dealing with my own issues of trying to figure out from a scientific or social scientific perspective what is going on with me and how I view my own gender, it was just hard to hear. Um, I feel like a delicate person sometimes in terms of dealing with transphobia like that, in the sense that um, I don't hear a lot of affirming things in my life outside of my personal social circle, and so when I get outside that bubble, it hurts and it sucks, and I do deal with a little bit of internalized transphobia, and so when I hear those things, I'm just like, a level of me is like, yeah, I don't know how to counter that. So I don't know. I do have good counter arguments, but it takes some thinking to use the language and use the tools that they are using in order to have a good argument. But in the end, I just feel like he was saying that my identity doesn't exist, it's invalid, and I am invisible. And I kind of regret that I didn't turn to him and say, you've been getting along with me this whole lunch, and you clearly respect me for now, and I want you to know that I am transgender, and you didn't know about it, which makes me think that your thesis is a little flawed. So, yeah, kind of